Public comment? Good. Approval of minutes from August 17th. Maleniak made a motion. Seconded by Compiler. Any questions?
No.
All right. New business, construction update. You all got the email, right? Mike's not here, so if you have any questions, you can email him or let me know at the end of the thing. Police Department, Sergeant Costello.
We just had a few announcements, and it has to do with like community events that we've been hosting over since probably the last meeting. We held a Cops with Kids basketball event here at the community center. Thanks to the community center for helping us put that together. It was a very successful event. We also did a trunk or treat event at the Colonial Middle School for Halloween. I would thank Plymouth Fire Company, Harmonville, and the Colonial School District. Also, Beanie Bounce was a sponsor for that event as well. Again, we had our annual Brad Fox 5K event held on November 14th. I was working on that event, so I'd like to personally thank police, fire, EMS, and most importantly the fire police. And without their help, we would have been had a difficult time controlling traffic and making it safe for all the runners who were there. This year it was held at the Votech School. In years past it was held at the station, but with the construction going on and stuff, it was a better venue to have it, so we had more space and stuff to operate. So we appreciate the assistance from the tech school. We also recently just hired 4 officers, 3 of which are assigned to Patrol Division. One is at the Temple Police Academy. Currently it's Peterson Myrtle, Ruben Pagan Rodriguez, Jacob Hennessy, and Owen Keogh. Owen is currently in the Temple Police Academy with an anticipated graduation date of the 24th, I believe.
What month, Tony?
March, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Not. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's March. I actually
Okay.
just saw him today, so
Okay. Yes.
he's doing well over there, and that's pretty much it.
Harmonville, John.
Status quo, we're going to be having our annual Christmas tree sale again. Trees are in, so they will actually go on sale earlier this year just because of availability of the trees. And did you guys want to talk about the
I think we should.
tax credit now, which is fine.
Act 91?
Yeah, or do you have an actual thing for that?
Yeah,
Okay, sorry.
that's on
All
there,
right, well, nothing else for Harmon.
Okay. John, Harmon, or Plymouth?
Yeah, same for status quo. Everything's going well. Calls are increased again, so we're going to be closer to 600 calls again for the end of the year. So we're just revamping our equipment for that. Other than that, we have our Santa pancake breakfast scheduled for December the 10th, which is a Sunday. And then I believe the following week we will be parading Santa around. We'll release that through our social media channels and things like that shortly, coming up after Thanksgiving.
And then you'll both get your stipend lists in.
Yeah.
We're working on that now. We plan on having it hopefully by the end of the month so that we can get it before
Yeah,
the holidays.
for us, it would be expecting the email Tuesday.
So,
Cool. Plymouth Ambulance, Tyler?
We've got our annual toy run coming up. That is December the 16th. This is Saturday. Everybody probably has seen the flyers, has boxes out. If you've got any ideas for businesses or whatever, forward them over to the email. And Michelle is the one that's taking care of that for the most part. First aid, CPR, any of that kind of training that anybody needs, give us a call. We're always able to help out getting people certified. Call volumes increased again every month. So yeah, we're probably looking a couple hundred to 1,000 more calls than last year, if I would have to guess. That's pretty much all we've got for right now.
Cool. Any miscellaneous? All right. Act 91?
As requested, John and I talked, and we kind of have a couple things here. You have enough to hand out to Chris? And
I have,
Ken?
yeah. So unfortunately, the long one I only have the one copy. You guys, that's very
Well,
much.
You have that for him.
I have them on my phone.
All right. So we sat down and we kind of went over the request of kind of what the policy or what the stipends and what the qualifications are going to be for this. What we printed out were 2 local townships that have already adopted this, both Goshen Township, which is Chester County, and Doylestown in Bucks County. And it looks like most people, and I talked to Chief Schwartz from White Marsh Township because they're adopting this policy as well, is most municipalities are keeping this as a very open style with not having firm numbers for each qualification. So that way you can set that at the meeting, at our ESB board meeting. And if that changes from year to year, the chiefs agree on that with council and township manager. And they don't put anything firm because as calls increase, it's going to be harder for people to make those quotas. You know, we could say 15% this year, and then if we run 200 more calls next year, that's even harder, you know, for the volunteer who doesn't work daytime or works daytime to make those calls. So we really are suggesting to keep this more of a broad, and you'll see if you go through kind of where some of their policies are, if you go back to the back pages here.
So they're breaking
Points?
Yeah,
they
they're doing a
do.
point
Yeah,
system.
the majority, basically everything we've seen that have been adopted locally in the 5 counties around us have done more of a point system, breaking down each lawful criteria that we have to set that we discussed back in the workshop, and they do a point system. That point system is then what John's talking about is the broad term that we sit at an ESB meeting, discuss, and negotiate together that we feel comfortable with. The reasoning being is John's right. You know, this year Plymouth runs 600 calls, Harmonville runs 750. They keep going up. Next year Harmonville's up to 850. We're up to 700, and unfortunately, we
it's
are
not even like that's
and
number
we're a
one.
volunteer organization. The majority of our calls are during that daytime where most of our members have a 9 to 5 regular career. That they're just physically not able to make those calls. So we're already eliminating a big chunk of them that they're just physically not able to do to be eligible for the credit. So that's why, to keep it broad and be able to agree year in and year out, we'll be a little fair but still maintain however you want to say it, you know, a reasonable expectation for you guys, for our members, not just to give it to them, but they do have to earn it. It's just a fair way to be able to
Yeah, well,
counterbalance all of that.
It doesn't increase each year, though. It's 600 points. Like, that's a good way to do it. I think it makes sense. The way of doing this.
What if, maybe this is in here somewhere, maybe we talked about this before, I don't remember. Like, what if you have two the spouses, they both volunteer, and like one's, you know, at some points and one's at other points, like, but they're under the same household? Is there like a stipulation for?
I would say
something like
no.
that?
It should be
No, it's just
whoever.
the
It has to be
household.
one or the
You
other.
choose
They
one.
have to make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
yeah,
and what
neither
both
make
these-
it, neither make it. But if one does, I mean, it's the household.
And both these policies are saying that the chiefs will give you guys a certified list ahead of time. Basically, we are verifying this. You guys are then just saying,
We're keeping the
okay.
logs. We're
Yeah.
keeping the totals. We present that to you each year. Of here's the eligibility list per company that we've vetted to ensure that this is the appropriate people that gets turned over to you for agreement, and then we go from there.
Would you have a list of people at the beginning of the year to track throughout the whole year, or could somebody come in
Someone could technically come
in the
in,
middle?
right? Like somebody brand new joins in March, and they make the criteria by the end of the year. They're technically
So it's really just that end of the year.
yeah,
that you're looking at.
yeah. We're just looking at the end of the year to be eligible for this part of it. And it's the same as pay per call. Like someone could come right in. There's no pre-requirement for that. And again, this is only for people who own houses in our township
Right.
that are eligible.
Yeah.
And until we can branch that idea to other townships that are, you know, adopting this as Plymouth is, to be able to give that
Yeah, and,
back
and,
and forth.
and in all honesty, Plymouth Fire Company's list is much, I would assume, is much shorter than Harmonville's, because we're in that unique area where some of our members live so close to the firehouse, but they're in Conshohocken Borough, you know? We have a lot of our members who actually live in either White Marsh or Plymouth, but they're still 5 minutes from the firehouse. Our list of actual Plymouth Township residents owning a home here is much smaller than one would actually think, just based off our unique area, so.
I mean, I'm just thinking of like loopholes here. So, say that
Of course.
say I'm a volunteer and I own 5 properties in the township that I rent. Like, do we have to specify? So
That could be
I
something.
yeah, I would
where
think
we
you
can
would
say-
want to specify. I mean, again, if that was the
Yeah.
case, yeah, it's a good point. Then you'd have to here's my address.
I think it's where you live. don't you?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, yeah, and you, know, you can rent, but I mean, it's, you know, what's on your ID, where are you receiving your mail, you know, what's your legal binding address.
And maybe
that
that's
would
just
have to
something the
happen.
solicitor puts in,
So-
is whatever domicile you
Yeah.
use.
Yeah, so you
Like
can't just switch
Where
that
you reside.
year in, year out. It's, if it's on the driver's license, that's where you're, I mean, that's your residence, and claiming residency then,
Let me get the rebate for the $1 million house.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
so.
So it doesn't have anything in this one about, like, if you're, say, the treasurer.
For a meeting, and then if you
Yeah,
go for eligible
it
agency
breaks
business
down.
membership meetings, that's where they would get that stuff there. And then leadership roles is chief officer, line officer, elected board member, administrative officer. They get 10 points per eligibility
Well,
period.
and that's just for being the treasurer.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep, and then they would get extra points for meetings for that type of stuff.
Yeah, but what if they spend like office hours writing checks and things like that?
They
Like,
would
I
have
think
to-
it should be included.
They would
somewhere.
have to document that into the reporting
It's
software.
like so many hours, something. Wouldn't you think?
They would have to document that.
Yeah, I mean, and for the administrative members, that is, you know, the majority of their work, obviously, from our treasurer to even our president and things like that. It's the hours spent in the office that
Exactly.
we're spending on the fire ground. Obviously, we have the meetings, the business meetings, any other, I mean, we have a lot of committee-type meetings that fall on the administrative side that we do. So there are ample opportunities to, you know, accrue your points, your credit that way from an administrative standpoint. Now, also, our administrative members are also taking part in some of the non-fire related incidents. So like our special services, from ladder arches to the trunk or treat
Christmas
events, things like that. They're huge in that too, with the setup and supplies and things like that. So there is sufficient opportunity for a non-firefighting, non-incident related member to accrue points, not just by meetings, but other ventures. But it's a good point that, yes, some of
I
their...
think we have to add a few more categories in here. Because like I don't see one that would be the time they spent writing the checks, or even the president, you know, the time to spend on the phone, doing whatever.
Well, I would say, for
Where's
me,
that
that would
fall?
fall under meetings. In theirs, like three, like either B or C for agency.
I would
committee
think you'd have to
meetings.
stipulate, you know, logged, you know, keeping
Yeah.
a certified log, you know, again, that we oversee of that type of administrative work that has to be done, you know, appropriately.
Probably
So-
more on the per hour.
Correct.
Like
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know,
Yeah.
you can spend 45 minutes on a phone call and say, oh, that counts. I don't know. But, you know, the treasurer spends, you know,
10 hours a week.
well, yeah, let's just say at a minimum 2 hours on you know, twice a week, sitting and doing those checks or you know, doing the bills and things like that. That would be different. You log that from hour to hour at a minimum of what we'd agree on, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it might be. Keep that log, certify that log to turn into us, to then turn into you, so that we can make sure that we're keeping those records adequately to turn in for fairness. I think that would alleviate someone just, you know, calling in saying, hey, I was home doing this, and this. Well, you can write 10 checks in 3 minutes, or you could spend, you know, 2 hours doing paperwork like we do. You know what I mean? It all depends. You know, not everything takes that long, some of which does. End of the year stuff, obviously. I mean, our treasurer and president will be in an office for 4 hours multiple times a week, making sure they get everything squared away. The budget stuff for budget time, our treasurer is,
Busy, yeah.
well, he's at the firehouse every day, getting that paperwork together. So, you know, that's multiple hours. I understand that. So, but also from an administrative side of the operation side, I mean, we're sitting in offices, not going to fire calls some days, 2-3 hours on a day off to do the same things. So, like I said, there's ample and sufficient opportunities for everybody to collectively accrue those points, and that's why they do it by a point system, to make it fair. You know, if you just do, it's a percentage of fire calls. Well, if you live in the township and you go to a lot of fire calls, that's easy. Not so much for maybe the treasurer who's 70 years old and doesn't run fire calls anymore. So,
And I think this Goshen one is actually a really nice one, or this is the Goshen one. No, this is the Doylestown one. Doylestown one is actually really nice for you guys to maybe even mirror. Because I was just looking, Chris, it has that qualified real property. So it's a residential real property owned and jointly owned and occupied as the primary domicile of the volunteer with an eligible. So it kind of covers a lot of that stuff. I think this is the one, if you're sending anything to the solicitor, this is a probably really good one for
And,
them
and
to-
you'll see, even with
base
those
ours
two
off.
documents and anything else you may Google find or research online, they all mirror each other. It's
Yeah,
very, it's
when-
very obvious that most municipalities in any county were doing the same thing, looking over, they basically begged, borrowed, and stole a lot of the wording verbiage for their resolutions because they're very similar, just obviously small areas where it's specific for where they're at, but most of them look almost identical.
What's your highest amount that someone's getting in a stipend from the stipend program? Do you know if
Paper call?
Yeah.
I think one of our younger, like early 20s guys who doesn't have, the full-time career yet.
You can say life.
What's that?
You can just say a life.
Yeah, a life. They're within like a $2,000 range.
Okay.
Yeah. So and that's probably been our biggest check each year is somewhere in the $2,000 range. Well, COVID was different because people were working from the firehouse and working from home, so that was a little different. But now back to whatever you call normal. We're about $2,000-ish.
That's not most of them.
No,
No,
most you'll get
That's
a little over
Yeah.
$1,000.
Yeah.
$700, $800, $900
High hundreds too.
is where you're kind of at there, average.
The only question I had for you guys is what kind of timeline did you want to put on this as far as like months? Did you want to do January to December or mirror it off this paper call, which is November to the end of October each year? Does that affect anything? When I read the act, nothing spelled out what the timeline had to be, like the time periods. I mean, I would just tell you for
is
us.
November to October easier for budgeting purposes, or does it not really matter? Because you can kind of estimate.
Well, I guess after 1 year, we have an idea.
Yeah.
Because like right now, it's literally unknown,
Right.
like a 2024 budget, that's what we.
I just thought when we're doing pay per call, a lot of these numbers are the same. It's easier to kind of produce both reports at the same time.
for you guys?
That just for us, for sitting down
Yeah,
and trying to do it all at once.
it's pulling one big lot of numbers to then put into the spreadsheets for each
add
thing.
a few
So
more things like.
Yeah, so I thought November
Yeah.
to end of October every year, mirror the paper call would probably be the easiest, as long as you guys are okay with that. For technically you have 2 months of the year prior they're going to count, but
I don't see it's a problem to you, unless Alex does. I don't see a problem.
yeah. So we like the point system. We think that's
Yeah.
a fair across the board. It gives everybody a good opportunity to be able to look at this stuff. So.
just leaves wiggle room on both sides of the table to ensure that it's done the right way, fairly, and doesn't put anybody out overboard on either side.
And now, did council approve the max for everybody, or how did you guys want to do the payments? Because technically, you could start at 25% and go to 100%. In this Doylestown one, there's points based per tax credit. 100 points gets you 25%, 200 points gets you 50%. I think some of these numbers, when I was talking to John, are a little high, like 600 points to get 100%. That's a lot.
I was wondering,
That's a lot.
at twos and,
Yeah, I
ones-
mean,
Yeah, I mean,
I
our,
didn't
our, our
know-
career staff who make the majority of the fire calls, I don't even think would be able to accrue that
Get
much.
600 points.
I was
right.
wondering, did you test it yet or not?
No. I just knew
When you
like
do your stipends, maybe just test.
trying to get 600 points is like
Just try
for
to test it and see if you could get 600 points in a year.
it's 1 point per call, 1 point per training, 1 point per meeting. Like
Nobody will get the 600.
no, that's,
2 points per emergency response.
oh yeah,
Oh, this
okay.
one is.
Are you on the
Yeah, but
Doylestown
600
one or the Goshen
This
one?
one is the county of Bucks.
Bucks. That's the Doylestown one.
But why does it not say Doylestown? It's
The
county.
signature and the signatures on the back
And
are the
the
county
sig-
commissioners.
Oh, is this the?
Yeah,
Did you
and
put out
they're
the
not-
county one, not Doylestown? I don't know which
It's
one.
not Doylestown Township or Borough, because I know who. the-
Okay, maybe this is the one that the county, Bucks County did.
Yeah, it is.
Doylestown was a county.
Oh, was it
That
county?
was all. The long one is from
Goshen,
Is Goshen.
Chester County.
This one's the Doylestown one, which
I
I
thought
think
we
is
were
from
talking about Doylestown.
Oh, is it because Doylestown's the county seat? Doylestown is the county seat.
Because they did, Bucks
so-
County did approve this for their volunteers at the
So,
county level as
just-
well.
So that's what this is,
That's
as
what
the
it is.
Cook County level.
So just testing numbers because
Just
I had
testing,
I
yeah.
had stuff. I took my numbers. I make a lot of calls
Okay.
because I'm shift work.
Yeah.
I could probably come close to 600 calls if I
Okay, put them
maybe get a divorce from my wife and
never
not
see your
and
children.
never see my children. But just for the service year of last year, out of 606 calls for that service year, I made over 200. So
Okay.
I'm within
that
that,
would be 400
I'm within that between 400 to 500 point range if you did that two points per call.
Yeah, and
But
then
that's
you
just
have
based off the call.
meetings and
That's
training.
not
Not
adding in the
meetings.
other.
And training sessions and such.
Yeah, that's just incidents, not the business meetings, anything like that. Anything.
I
else.
mean, I would be open personally to bumping this back a little bit. If you guys, is that what you guys are going to decide? Is like the points with each credit? Because does everybody deserve 100%? That's up to you guys to decide that. I mean, yes, but that's your
Well,
option.
why don't, I was gonna say, if you want to test it with your stipend program, I'm just curious if, could anybody even achieve it? Like, how many people, it'd be the people who are getting the stipend would be the ones who could get this,
Mhm.
obviously, because there's the same active people. But, yeah. I don't think we were thinking that you would get, like, you would get 50% or 75 or 25. Weren't we
I think we were
thinking that
thinking-
you either
yeah.
qualified or you didn't qualify?
Correct.
And
That's-
you
that's
get
what-
it, you
right.
So I mean, what we could
so, but there'd be,
I would say that
I mean, if people can't get it, I mean, probably they'd rather have 50 than nothing if they can get 200 points.
you could maybe have like
Yeah.
either half or all. Like could be maybe 2 levels.
Because there's some people that they're half as active, Yeah.
Yeah, and I just look at like John said, like people that are administrative, it's going to be tough for them. They may put more time in than the people that are making the fire calls who will be eligible for this,
Right.
but they put more time into the fire company. They may not hit this because of calls and that kind of stuff.
What would you say, I mean, I know there's long calls and short calls. What would be the average number of hours in a response to a call?
30 minutes to an hour, depending on what
Yeah,
it is.
we averaged this past month. Our average incident time was about 22 minutes.
Okay, 22, 30 minutes. Like, I wonder if you should say the treasurer, so is every 30 minutes,
I mean,
2
we bump
points?
up for pay per call. We bump up after
Same.
an hour, so it's a $5 per call, and then at an hour it goes to $10 per call.
Okay,
That's what the pay per call is.
Yeah, that was stipulation there.
but that's what I was thinking, something like,
So like, as it goes past an hour, is it 4 points?
Well, yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I mean, that sounds.
Yeah, well, I was trying to correlate what would it take for the administrative person, because as Alex said, that's what was missing.
Maybe it's something same as it's
So-
2 points for less than an hour, and it's 4 points for
2 hours
over
or
an
something,
hour.
or whatever.
Whatever it is, it's just 4 points blanket, and we could do the same thing for fire calls. We could say it's 2 points per call
It's your
at
time.
under an hour,
It's your time,
and
yeah.
yeah, it's your time. And then you get 4 points if the call is over an hour, which I think would be mirroring pay per call, which would probably be
Yeah.
good.
We could massage this
Yeah.
one, yeah.
And even I mean, our hour calls, we average less than. I mean, last year I think we had less than 35, 40 calls that were over an hour out of the 600 and some that we had. So again, it's not astronomical. So it still will take some work.
That many times you'll get 4
Even
points.
even if we left it with like a 2 point to 4 point, depending on that, it's still work for the members to try that, because it isn't like we're doing 400 of them over an hour in a year. It's just not happening.
But I'm sure by the time they leave their house for the call, and by the time they get back to their house after the call, it's.
Yeah, so we
It's-
don't,
it's-
and we don't
Yeah, we don't-
tabulate
yeah,
that
we don't-
time that way. We
Yeah,
just
we don't
it's
incorporate
just-
that
it's
time.
from it's from the
To the
dispatch
back.
to the arrival and the clear time. That's
Yeah, I know.
it.
Probably
Sometimes
double that, right? Or-
Sometimes it's 2 o'clock in the morning. We're there at 4 o'clock, BSing outside the fire.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, "Man, we should have just went home."
Yeah,
Now it's 4 o'clock. No point going to sleep now.
more times than I'm willing to admit to it happens.
And then the only other thing I'd be open to, as long as everybody else is, just bumping the points back a little bit. I think if a fair 25% should maybe be about 75 points, and then the 50% at 150, and then 75 back to like, I don't know what's fair on that, 300, 325, and then 500 for the 100%. I think that's probably fair, because it's hard to achieve, but it's also rewarding somebody who does put that full effort in. If everybody's okay with, unless you want to go 50 or 100
I personally, I don't necessarily think you need 4
categories.
categories. I think make it a little simpler. It's nice to have at least
Yeah,
2.
half or all,
It's nice
okay.
at least to have 2, so you can say the people that really do a lot
They get it all.
are getting more. Like
So do we want to say for 50%, leave it at 200, and for 100%, 400? And then it's basically doubling. So the 50% right now on Bucks Counties is 200. And you just double it for 100%, that's 400.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
I like that.
And that's our 2 levels. And that kind of puts a little motivation under people to get to that 50% if they're close. Okay. Come out to more fire calls.
Yeah, sell some more
like,
trees or something.
Yeah, come out
So
to more
something like that, like-
events, like maybe that will engage them a little bit more on that, like the administrative stuff.
That's why I think if you get some number of points per hour spent, things like that, Easter flowers, trees.
Any other
Or
fundraising
beach
events
stuff.
companies have?
Yeah. Okay.
Does that sound good?
Well, I'll send it back to Alex and make sure, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Yeah, keep the documentation.
and this
give
is-
it to
this
whoever you
is
need.
a-
If you need anything else, shoot me an email or give me a call. I'll be glad to.
Like I said,
forward
this
anything
spells
over to
out
you.
all their eligibility. Now, one thing that I think we have to take into consideration is the injured firefighter one too, because that's in the actual act. Is that if someone does become permanently disabled and they own in the township, they're covered for their life. So if they're injured on the job with the fire company, they are covered
With
for
what, paid taxes? What do you mean covered?
for the
Covered
real
how?
estate, for the income and the
Okay.
real estate.
Considered to meet it every year?
Correct. Because they were injured in the line of duty, so they are covered. There's no question about them, they're covered.
Yeah, we'll have to read it, obviously, but yeah.
Yeah, that's in the
Makes
act though.
sense.
In the act, it says you have to do that. So
Yeah.
they just put it into their adoption.
Resolution. The only thing I'm thinking with something like that is like, say they're injured, they can't fight fires, but they would still.
I would say it depends on what you consider injured emergency responder, right?
Yeah, is it social security definition of disability, or is it, you know?
They go out
Or-
for disability, then they can't volunteer for nothing. My dad went through it.
Or
Like,
is it
once he was
just-
put on full disability, he couldn't even come out just to get credit for it all.
Like I guess I mean, like say somebody like hurts their back, they can't climb a ladder or something, but they could but they want to, and they could do administrative stuff.
I think it all
like,
depends on what the
Whatever
medical
that-
word
that
would
was.
be for it, yeah. But
You guys
they're-
would know
if they're
more
on,
about
like,
that.
full disability, they can't, because if they get caught, then
It
they
says as long as it's accompanied by a satisfactory documentation from a licensed physician stating that the individual's injury prevents them from him or her performing duties to qualify as an emergency responder.
Okay. That sounds pretty official.
So
Did-
it's just something that was in the act when I was reading the act. That I was like, well, we need to make sure
Is
it's
it- like I said, we didn't read it, but
Yeah.
an injured emergency responder may receive the rebate for up to 5
They
consecutive
put-
tax years.
yeah. That's what they put, but in the act, which
This
is
is what Bucks put in?
that's what Bucks put in. Yeah.
This is where we have to get Alex to give council the options, the choices.
Mhm.
It's not really our issue necessarily, but like if White Marsh is looking at doing this, if Conshohocken would be looking at doing this, it may be a good idea to try to make sure that people are kind of doing the same thing. 'Cause you might
I
have-
would say that is a great idea. But
But-
however, I was told that the White Marsh Emergency Services were not even aware that their township was putting this forth, and that the township fire chiefs were caught off guard that they were even doing this, and they were not involved in any of the discussion for the resolution. That they were only involved after the resolution was already adopted by their township.
The discussions.
So they've adopted the resolution, but they haven't come up with like a.
Correct.
Because my just thinking there is like somebody, just to avoid confusion, like somebody living in White Marsh, but is a volunteer for us. Like if there's ever any that kind of mutual stuff going on, like I don't know where this would lead, but like
I think those conversations. Once we get all 3 municipalities on board, I'd love for councils to sit down and talk about that, because I think that is mutually beneficial. That if there's an active volunteer, like John's example, John has somebody who lives in Conshohocken, but they're active here, and someone who lives in Plymouth is active in Conshohocken. Why wouldn't we be able to give that back and forth?
Yeah, I mean, I have
and as
two
long
members that
as
live on
if the
West
solicitor
End
can look
Ave,
through the
scoot over
act,
Plymouth instead
there's
of going up
nothing
to Van Street, so.
saying that you can't do
Which
that.
I'm very happy about.
Probably would be a good idea for them to read that, just to make sure we can do that in the future.
Right.
Once
Well, from that reciprocity, so that
Yeah, I
White
mean-
Marsh would count the calls you put into the Plymouth
It
Fire
would
Company
be-
for the White Marsh
yeah,
Township rebate.
as long as you're going even for even, 1 for 1, I think that's
Right, it's the same
You know.
rate.
yeah.
Do you think White Marsh, you said they already adopted the
Yeah,
ordinance?
yes.
To,
The ordinance was proposed. It
on
goes for
board with
adoption.
the
I think
idea?
Chris said at their next meeting, but he said, they weren't even involved in the conversation yet.
Yes, and they're getting a new.
Because I called him and they asked, like, hey, what are you guys doing are you guys doing the point? He goes, we weren't, unfortunately, we weren't involved in that, but we want to be, so we're trying to, once they pass the resolution, to get in with the figuring out what the requirements are going to be.
Yeah, and how about Conshohocken?
Last I had talked to the chief of Conshohocken is the borough is not open to it.
They're not
That's
open
what
to
that was the
idea?
last I heard
things
to them,
different.
which I don't.
Yeah, they weren't even allowed in the door.
Yeah. So in grander talks with Chief Schwartz is once both our townships are on board, we're just going to go to the whole idea here was the townships are really the small give backs to the volunteers. It's really the school board and everything else. So once we get moving with this and it's adopted here, it's adopted in White Marsh, we're just going to not even
Pressure's
worry about
on.
Conshohocken and we're just going to go to the school board. and
The
say-
township of Lower Merion, with their 7 fire companies, have been doing this now for a little while longer than any of us have, and that's where they're making headway. Is they have 7 departments encompassing that whole area, obviously a much bigger area, and getting everybody on the same page for the tax rebate to then be able to eventually address the school board and things like that. So, yeah, obviously we want to mirror that as we get going and trying to get everybody on board. It's going to be a lot harder with three municipalities than just one giant one with 7 fire companies. But we've been
But
trying.
then we go for county too. I know there's already action in our county chiefs association to try to get the county to do something as well. So hopefully they can.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I
resolution.
said, it's a talking point everywhere, obviously, for the obvious reasons. So,
Okay.
And if there's anything that comes up, just let us know if
Yeah.
you guys need questions answered.
yeah, like I said, I can forward any more documentation, a lot of different examples that I have on file, anything that anybody might need from council or the solicitor or anything like that, please let me know.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Okay. I'll get
We'll get the lawyers on
solicitor
it.
to look at it, and the rest of council to look at it. And
Do you have the Goshen one or no?
no, you just gave me
Here's,
this.
here's the Goshen one, so you can have this one.
I have it in the
Thanks.
Any questions on that? We're gonna go over it again? All right. 2023 stipends?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind you.
Yep, working
Yep.
on it
I mean,
now.
when, you
Yep,
know,
we'll get it to.
I'm sure
No
you
later
forget.
than the end
I'm
of
sure
the
you
month.
forget, but
Any old business? Next meeting is February 15th next year, here.
Comment?
Nope.
just looking for a replacement.
You have to replace me. I wasn't here very long. I got out that Parks board. That was a real nice trade-off. These meetings are way longer.
Yeah.
Do you guys want this? Do you guys want this? Or?
No, it's all yours. Yeah. Do it.
Make a
You
motion.
know what, I'll-
Yeah, we'll get it.
Motion by John, second by John, any questions?
Might get it back.
All right, have a good night.